Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Showing Up to Your Life podcast and YouTube channel. My name is Art Burns, and I'm excited here today. But you know what? I'm a little tired. I'll be honest with you. Today is actually my day off, and so I made an allusion to this a few episodes ago. At some point, I'm going to realign my recording days, right? So I'm going to record on the weekends and take a couple of the weekdays off. I hope that's okay with everyone. But it's even when you love what you do, and even when even when what you do really does energize you, it's still very, very helpful to take a day off once in a while. And I found that I had actually worked I mean, there were definitely some days where I didn't have to work the whole day, but I had to work some, which means that you get into that headspace, right? Like we need to release that from time to time, right? We need to just get out of that and just have a day where, you know what, it's okay if you just lie around all day and do nothing but watch Netflix, right? That's not really my style. It's probably not what I will do to relax and to enjoy myself, but it's okay if I do, right? Like that's the idea, right? Like you need to have that sort of autonomous, kind of release of your, of your time. It's very, very important. I'm moving my microphone here so you can all see my nice shirt from the Love and Arms Animal Sanctuary up here they're in Erie, Colorado, outside Denver. Wonderful folks, wonderful farm, wonderful residents, animals and humans alike, and I love them. And I just love the heart on my shirt. I mean, it just reminds me every time I see it, reminds me of my compassion and my love. So anyway, yeah. So today's kind of just it's a little bit of an informal subject too, because I wanted to talk about. I mentioned this yesterday, so. This was actually originally planned for yesterday's episode, but I switched it up because of that really kind of powerful lesson that I learned about my own behavior and my own sort of work, with regards to these webinars. Anywho, but today what I was going to talk about is sort of how we transition, right? And this is a very, very important topic, right? And especially for any of you, I know I've had two people who have asked to join this program, so you're welcome. We'll work out the details and all that. But for especially for this, right, for this program that I'm going to be starting here, and specific, but for anyone who's starting a mindfulness regimen, it's hard to call it a regimen, I guess, but anybody who's trying to weave mindfulness and heartfulness into their lives, right, which it's going to be a transitional period, right? You're going from a place where you're reactive. You may be, emotionally, I'm going to say the word illiterate, but that's not meant to be like any kind of insulting, just as the opposite of emotional intelligence, right? Which is it's not a static number, right? Like even the emotional intelligence, they measure that by what they call the emotional quotient, right? EQ, like an IQ, right? And so it's not like an all or nothing thing, right? You can have a medium level of EQ, or you can have a very high level of EQ, right? So when I say emotional illiteracy, I just mean a lower kind of EQ, a lower level of emotional intelligence, right? It's not like all or nothing, right? It's not like you can't read, but that's just the word they use, emotional illiteracy. And so you're going from this place where you were reactive, you were, maybe engaging in a lot of anger, maybe you were, snapping, maybe you were impatient, maybe you were, all kinds of things. And these are the reasons why you came to this work, right? And that's true for everyone, right? I mean, if you go into like the Buddhist kind of, philosophies and sort of, talks and you go to a dharma center, you're likely to hear people say that you want to do Buddhism and mindfulness just to do Buddhism and mindfulness, right? Like in fact, one of my somebody who came through an introduction to mindfulness course, he didn't need it. He's been practicing mindfulness for 40 years, but he came through my course anyway. And he mentioned at one point, he's like, try not to make a project out of it. right? And that's important, right? It is important to say, okay, I'm just going to do this and kind of see what happens, right? Because if we do this and just say, okay, I'm just going to do this so that I can turn my anger around, right? Well, then you might miss out on a lot of important stuff that way. So I do agree that you want to approach it with an openness, right? But at the same time, there's a real reality here, a realistic nature of the fact that why did you come to meditation, right? Like, what made you think that meditation was going to be good for you, right? Well, in almost every single situation, that answer to that question, especially in the West, the answer to that question is, I need to fix something about myself, right? There's something about myself that I don't like, that is either dangerous, it's scaring me for my health, it's destroying my relationships, it's I can't, it's unsustainable in some way, financially, emotionally, whatever that is, right? But there's something, right? There's something that brought all of us to this work, right? There's something that we felt was not quite right, that we needed to come to this work and right, okay, and make right, yeah? And so there's nothing wrong with that, right? That's very common. It's very, and it's beautiful, right? It's wonderful to be able to approach a new practice, a new way of life, a new programming of yourself, whatever it is, right? To approach something with the desire to improve ourselves, right? There's something really, really beautiful and admirable and noble about doing that. So take some pride in that, right? Like, don't feel, like, oh, and that kind of is part of the stigma that maybe keeps people from doing this work sooner than they probably did. Like, they could have done it sooner and helped themselves a lot more, right? And the thing that keeps us from doing that is that stigma, right? Of feeling like, well, if there's something wrong, like, I have to admit there's something wrong with me in order to embrace this practice, right? And so a lot of us are resistant to that idea that something's wrong with me, and that brings us back to the non-identification, right? And I always, every single person, in almost every case, before I start working with someone, right, as I call them, partners, a lot of people call them clients. I'm trying to find that beautiful magical word. I'm gonna make up a word at some point, an Art Burns Art Burnsian word of some sort. But anyway, so the so when we have that resistance, right, that feeling like, oh, I'm sorry, digress again. What I say to every single person who approaches me to work with me, every single one of them, I tell them, it's not your fault, right? Because that's the non-identification, right? We feel like, okay, if I'm gonna go, try to learn how to do mindfulness so that I can fix my anger, right, or whatever you want to call it, right? Reduce my anger, manage my anger, transform my anger, transcend my anger, whatever you want to call it, right? That what that very statement includes is that there's something wrong with me because I have this trouble with this anger, right? And the minute we think there's something wrong with us, well, then we're feeling shame, right? And when we feel shame, we close down our ability to see things in the same way. We close down our ability to reason things and to understand things on a deeper and more impactful way, and in an important way, right? And so it's critical, it's absolutely critical to be able to, at the same time, admit that you need help with something, but also that it's not you, it's not your fault, it's not a flaw, it's not an imperfection, right? Because you are perfect, we are all perfect, there's nothing wrong with any of us. We just, it's just that our bodies have this, have learned this tendency through things that had nothing to do with us, right? Most of it was when we were so young, we couldn't even, we wouldn't even been able to do something different, right? And so your body has been conditioned to react in a certain way. It has nothing to do with who you are or what you are, or what's, what makes you go, right? It's not your essence that we're talking about. It's a behavioral thing. It's an emotional reactivity thing. It's very much a biochemical thing, right? And it's not your fault. Right, so this is a very, very critical concept, right? Because if we are going to, because the only way this stuff works, right? These practices work is to really go into them, and the only way you can really go into them in a certain level is to let down your guard, right? To really be open to it. Like that's a required thing, is to open to this stuff. And if you're feeling shame and you're feeling fear and you're feeling unworthy, well, then it's going to be really hard for you to open up that way. So the first thing we talk about is how it's not your fault. All right. So once you get through that, now you get into the process of righting the ship, if you will, right? Trying to, learn the skills that are going to enable you to live in a way that you feel is is the antithesis of what brought you here, right? Again, like whether you were fearing for your health, fearing for your relationships, your career, your whatever, right? Doing this work now will impact those areas in your life, right? But now here comes the next part. And this is the part that I didn't see coming at all, right? And I think most people don't, right? Because we're looking at it from the inside out. So it's hard for us to see this perspective, right? But the thing is that, and this is especially true with anger, right? As you know, I just did this anger transformed webinar. I'm going to start a course on Sunday. So it's all about anger, right? But it's true for all emotions, right? Anything that's been a big deal that you're now turning around, right? Whether it's anger, it's shame, it's jealousy, it's fear, it's guilt, it's unworthiness, whatever it is, right? The people around you, right? They are accustomed to you the way you have been for years, right? Like so, and it radiates out, right? Like our family has known us since the beginning, right? Especially our parents, right? Like they have known us since the very first nanosecond of our life, right? So old friends or maybe extended family is the next ring, right? So you have your family in this core and they know everything. They know you up, down, right, and left, right? And then you go outward and you go into a ring of extended family who know a lot about you, right? They know almost everything, not quite, right? And then you go outward to close friends, right, with whom you've shared secrets and inner truths that so these people know you very well. And maybe in next to that ring or within that ring is maybe a spouse, right, which is truly just a really good friend, who with whom you've partnered in this life, right, and gotten into an intimacy, right? So it's like the best friend ever, kind of thing, right? And then you go out into more people who don't know that much about you, right, or know less about you, right? The people you've worked with, the people casual friends and colleagues, people who you just see in the neighborhood, that kind of stuff, right? So it kind of radiates out, right? And so wherever a person is in that sort of, concentric circular chart that I just described to you, right? Wherever they are in that chart, they're going to have a certain level of assumptions that they're going to make about you and your behaviors. Okay. And what that means is that even though you're changing things, even though you're you're doing the work to make the changes that are going to, reflect in all the beauty of your life, right? All the beautiful things you can do, all the beautiful things you can say, all the beautiful smiles you can give people, all that connection out there that you can get into, right? Like that's, as you start doing that, you're going to see what you're doing, right? And you're going to feel what you're doing. But depending on and the people in the outer rings of that concentric chart that I just described, they'll see it too, right? They're more likely to see it because they don't know you so well. They have less subcontext with which to process you, right? And so that's where the the quote, Ram Dass has a quote that says, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a week with your family, right? And they're that inner ring. Those are going to be the last people to see the changes that you're making and to accept the changes that you're making and to believe them in a certain way, right? Because again, if somebody's seen you for the last 30 years, with an anger issue, right? Well, then if you if they see you one day with and you're not feeling particularly angry, you're not showing that anger, well, then they're likely to just say, well, they're just having a good day, right? Let's see what happens. And it even goes a little further, and this is what Ram Dass was saying, is that there's so much subcontext with our family, right? That our parents can say just one little, like a little pinprick and just let all the air out of our balloons, and we feel like and that's what Ram Dass was saying, like we feel like we're not very enlightened at all and we have a lot more work to do. Now that's a danger, right? Because that can be discouraging. And so this is why you need a coach. Seriously, like this is what a coach can help you do. It helps you through this period because, again, the family is going to be the last people to see it, right? But everything outside, everything inside of that very outer ring, it's going to take time before people recognize the changes that you've made, right? And the thing is that during that time that we're taking for people to recognize this and to start appreciating and to start believing that you're working on yourself the way that you are with your wonderful coach, right? Though in that time that it takes for those people to come around to the understanding, they are going to continue to treat you as though you haven't changed, right? They are likely to, and I remember this from when I told you all I used to run a bagel shop, right? A little cafe. It was not a typical bagel shop. It was very, very atypical. Like most things that I do, it was very atypical. Um, and uh, and so one of the things that, and I just jumped into this. It was very ill-advised, very poor decision on my part. I lost my job in the advertising industry, and I said, screw it. I'm going to do something close to home. I've been eating bagels my whole life. How hard can it be, right? And most of it, I was right. Most of it was not hard at all. But one of the things that I really struggled with was handling minimum wage employees. Okay, I learned a lot. And I had come from managing people who were making $80,000 to $100,000 a year. Right, these people, their job meant a lot to them. Right, that was a big, big deal. They needed to perform so that because this was just one place in their career. Right, they had their eyes up there. Right, and so you had a certain level of commitment from people. Right, a certain level of like we can't screw up kind of thing. Right, when you're dealing with people who are making like $10, $15 an hour, and I always paid people over minimum wage. Let me be clear about that, right? Like I was the first guy in the block who was paying people $15 an hour. And they were shocked that I was paying them $15 an hour, which was beautiful, right? But even at that point, there's only so much crap you're going to take for $15 an hour, right? There's only so much you're going to give of yourself for $15 an hour. And I get that now. I didn't get it then because I just didn't have the reference of understanding. And so what and that coupled with what I have explained to you was a very deep, deep, deep anger issue, right? Like I used to get really angry, and like ragey and shouting and really, really bad. I mean, it was clearly out of control, right? And so what happened is, and this is really fascinating, and I was only able to see this at the end, like when I was walking away from it, like for the last year, I understood what had happened all this time, right? So I had a couple of employees who were there from day one all the way to the time I sold it, right? There was a continual, actually, I think there was one person who was there the whole time. But the thing is that there was enough crossover, right? That the first impression just kind of lasted forever, right? And what I mean by that, okay, it's scientifically acknowledged that when we have a first impression of someone, right, it takes a lot to change that impression we have of them. So if the first time you meet someone, right, they slam a door in your face, right, it is very likely that you will never ever see that person as someone who didn't slam the door in your face. I mean, it's not like you're looking to change reality, of course, but you're going to never see them as the type, you're always going to see them as the type of person who's going to slam a door in your face, right? Unless, there's a lot of time and a lot of effort that goes into changing that impression, right? But it takes a lot, right? That's the way our minds work. Like we very, the physical brain works that way. It catalogs and categorizes things that it's seeing, and it puts it in a box and it moves on because it's very busy, the brain, right? It's got billions of pieces of data that it processes every day, right? So this is not something that your brain wants to, like, leave open and no, okay, angry person, mean person, okay, in this box, bye. And move over. And so what happens then, right? So in the bagel shop, right, I had, in the first couple of years, my head was spinning. I didn't know, I had never run a restaurant before. So there was definitely times where I was freaking out because it was my whole investment here, right? Like for me, it was not just a bagel shop. It was, like my life savings was in this thing, right? So I used to, my anger used to arise quite a bit, right? And because there was enough crossover, right? Because there was enough, like those first employees that, that saw me. What I'm trying to say is, even though in the last 2 or 3 years of running the bagel shop, I was practicing mindfulness and I was not angry anymore. But because there was like this sort of continuum, right, that people just knew me as the angry boss, that even when I was completely neutral and even smiling, right, at sometimes I would go into the kitchen and the people in the kitchen were like expecting, like the way they talked and the way they became defensive. Like if I would go in and ask somebody, hey, did you make the chicken salad today, and they slam the counter and say, dude, come on, man, you're riding me. It's like, it just asks a simple question. And it wasn't that this person was crazy in front of me, or that they had lost their mind somehow, right, or lost their grip on reality somehow. It's the fact that they were relying on that subcontext of how they knew me for all these years, right? They knew that I was the guy who would bark like, hey, you didn't make the damn chicken salad, come on, right? And so even though one day, it was no longer like that, and I would just come in and I would say, hey, Jose, did you get to make the chicken salad today? And he would react as though I barked at him, right? It's not that Jose was like out of his mind. He was conditioned, right? He was conditioned to seeing me in that way. And so therefore it's really hard for him to see me in another way. And so the reason I tell you this is that as you start your mindfulness, heartfulness journey, whether it's with me or with someone else, or you're already doing it with me, I guess, by listening to these videos, right? But whether it's a formal coaching kind of thing, or you're just doing it on your own, I support you in either way. But you gotta be prepared. It's really helpful for you to be prepared for the fact that it's not going to just change like that. Now, you're going to change, let me put it this way, you're going to change faster than the people around you recognize you're changing. Okay? Now, that's why it's very important to have someone, whether it's a coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's a colleague, whether it's a spouse, a sibling, have someone in your life who knows what you're going through, right? And who can offer you some clear and positive feedback about how you're doing, right? Because what happens is, if you only have the people in your life who are looking for you to be the same way that you always have been, well, it's going to get very discouraging to you. It's going to get very frustrating to you. It's going to get very, you very likely will revert back into that same reactivity that you came to mindfulness to alleviate, right? Like that's the thing, right? That's the pitfall. That's the trap we can fall into. Okay, so again, I mean, a coach is ideal in this situation, right? A coach helps you to, week by week, a coach tells you, no, look how amazing you're doing. Look at what you just did. You are a rock star, right? And also the coach says you're a rock star, but we got to do this a little bit more, right? We need to spend more time on this. And a coach helps you to number one, not only the not number one, but not only does a coach help you with this sort of, transitional period, but a coach also gets you to make that transition as short as it possibly can be, right? Because your coach is giving you the exercises and the practices that are that work, right? Like you can be very focused with it, right? It's the difference between, figuring out how to program a computer on your own and going and taking a course where somebody teaches you how to do it, right? It's a completely different experience, right? And one takes a long time, the other takes a shorter time. All right. But not only that, of course, then a coach can help you through this transitional period, because the problem is that, here's how it works, right? And here's how it used to work in the bagel shop too, right? It's like, like I come in, I say, hey, did you make the chicken salad, Jennifer? And Jennifer says, God, you're riding me, man. What the hell? I'm just working here. Why are you always doing this to me and stuff, right? And I'm like, now how do I react to that, right? Like now I might get resentful, right? I might say to Jennifer, well, no, damn it. I came in here asking nicely about the chicken salad, but you're freaking out. So now I'm upset. And now if you don't want to get fired, make the damn chicken salad. And then you see, everybody, you see how angry he is? You see nothing's changed? And now I go home and I feel shame and I feel discouraged and I feel, just low and down, and I want to just crawl under the sheets and just hide under a rock or something like that, right? So you see how that happens? And that's why it's really, really, really helpful. If you don't want to, or your resources make it unavailable to you to hire a coach, well then you can join a Dharma center. We run one online here called Learning to Surf. I'll put the link down in the description. You can join Wednesday. Every Wednesday and Saturday we offer these classes. Come as you are. Come and go as you are. Donate if you want to. Don't donate if you can't or don't want to. And basically we practice together, right? We practice together and then we talk about it together, right? And so this is the community that will help you in this way, right? If you can't afford or you don't want to for some reason, hire a coach, because a coach is something that it's like golfing with a caddy. I mean, I've never even golfed with a caddy, but I can already tell you how the experience would be completely different, right? It's somebody who's there to support you. Right? Like, a lot of times people think that a caddy is just someone who just carries your golf clubs for you, but it's far, far different from that. Oh my gosh, it is so far different from that. And I've been told by people who work with caddies, right? And people who are caddies, in fact, right? Like someone who used to come to the bagel shop was a caddy for the PGA players. Like he had, I think Vijay Singh was one time, he was a caddy for the major golfer, And so I used to meet a lot of really interesting people. I mean, movie stars, just so many different people I met through this. The lead singer from the Psychedelic Furs was a regular customer of mine, like daily. I used to hang out with him. He was an idol of mine when I was 13 years old, Anyway, so when you're working with a caddy, right? A caddy is not just somebody who can just, carry your bags. A caddy is somebody who knows that golf course so well. He knows every square foot of that golf course and can tell you from where your ball is, okay, yeah, it looks like it's 150 yards, but that's an uphill there. It doesn't look so uphill, but it is. So you want to shoot as though it's 180 yards, right? And so he's going to help you, or she's going to help you to do the things that are going to get you the best golf game. So a coach is someone who's going to do the things that's going to get you the best transitional experience. All right. So that's as close as you're going to get to a sales pitch from me. Okay. But I just want to explain to you what is there for you. Okay. What is available to you. All right. All right, folks. I wish you well. I really, really wish you well. Hope you enjoyed this episode today. I'll put some links in the description. Please let me know if you have any questions, okay? And if you ever want to talk about a coaching situation, I have this group thing coming up. I also do one-on-one. There's plenty of opportunities for you. So if you're interested in talking about any of that, I'm going to put another link to get on a call with me. All right? Thanks, everybody. Wishing you well, and I'll be back again later. Take care.